The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Maya pushed her cleaning cart down the empty hallway. It was almost 9 in the evening, and the executive floor of Sterling Industries was finally quiet. Most days she preferred it this way. No executives rushing past her like she was invisible. No awkward moments when someone held the elevator door, their eyes flickering with pity at her janitor's uniform. Maya was 19, but some days she felt much older. Between her classes at community college and this night shift, sleep had become a luxury she couldn't quite afford. Still, she never complained. Her mother had worked 2 jobs her entire life to give Maya a chance at something better. Now that her mother was gone, Maya was determined not to waste that sacrifice. She pulled out her keyring and unlocked the door to the CEO's office. This was always her last stop, and she cleaned it quickly. Mr. Sterling usually left by 7 like clockwork. The office was impressive, all dark wood and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Maya had grown up in a cramped apartment, where you could hear every word your neighbor said through the thin walls. This single office was probably bigger than her entire childhood home. She started with the bookshelves, carefully dusting around the awards and family photos. Mr. Sterling had a wife and 2 grown children, from what she could see in the pictures. They all looked like they belonged in a magazine, with their perfect teeth and expensive clothes. Maya tried not to feel bitter about it. Everyone had their own path in life, her mother used to say. As she moved to empty the trash can beside the desk, her elbow caught the edge of his briefcase. Everything happened in slow motion. The briefcase tipped, spilling its contents across the marble floor. Papers scattered everywhere, a laptop case slid under the desk, and a leather wallet landed face up near her feet. "Oh no, no, no," Maya muttered, dropping to her knees. Her heart pounded as she scrambled to gather everything. Getting fired was not an option. This job paid better than anything else she could find with her limited schedule. She worked quickly, trying to remember exactly where everything had been placed. She reached for the wallet, and that's when she saw it. The wallet had fallen open, and tucked behind a credit card was a photograph. But this wasn't a picture of Mr. Sterling's family. This was a photo of a young woman, maybe 20 years old, sitting on a park bench. She wore a simple yellow sundress, and her dark hair fell in waves past her shoulders. She was laughing at something off camera, her eyes crinkled with genuine joy. Maya's hands began to shake. She knew that face. She had grown up looking at that face. She had held that hand, been hugged by those arms, heard that laugh 1,000 times before it was silenced forever. That was her mother. But it couldn't be. Her mother had never looked like this in any photo Maya had ever seen. In all their pictures, together her mother was tired, worn down by long shifts and endless bills. She was older, with gray starting to thread through her hair and permanent worry lines around her eyes. She was still beautiful, but in a different way. A harder way. This girl in the photo looked so young, so carefree, so full of hope. Maya's vision blurred with tears as she stared at the image. Where had this been taken? When? And why on earth was it in James Sterling's wallet? "What are you doing?" The voice made Maya jump so violently she nearly dropped the wallet again. She looked up to find James Sterling himself standing in the doorway. He must have forgotten something and come back. His expression was stern, his eyes moving from her face to the wallet in her hands. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Sterling," Maya said quickly, scrambling to her feet. "I accidentally knocked over your briefcase. I was just picking everything up. I wasn't trying to steal anything or look through your things, I swear." But even as she spoke, she couldn't stop staring at the photograph. Her mind was racing, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. James started to walk toward her, probably to take his wallet back, but then his eyes landed on the open photograph. He stopped dead in his tracks. The color drained from his face. For a moment, he just stood there, frozen, his eyes locked on the picture. Then his gaze shifted to Maya's face, really looking at her for the first time. She watched as his expression changed from anger to confusion to something else, something that looked almost like recognition. "Where did you get that face?" he whispered. His voice was barely audible. Maya blinked, confused. "What?" "Your face," he said. louder now but still shaken. He moved closer, his eyes searching hers with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "You look just like her. How is that possible?" Maya's grip tightened on the wallet. "I don't understand what you mean. This is your wallet. This is your photograph. I should be asking you the questions." She held up the picture, her voice breaking. "This is my mother. This is Elena Rodriguez. Why do you have her picture in your wallet?" James Sterling stumbled backward as if she'd physically pushed him. His hand reached out, gripping the edge of his desk for support. His perfectly composed CEO demeanor crumbled right before her eyes. He looked like a man who'd just seen a ghost. "Elena," he breathed. "Elena Rodriguez. You're Elena's daughter?" "Yes," Maya said, her voice stronger now despite her confusion. "She was my mother. She passed away 3 years ago. Cancer." Even now saying those words hurt. "But you didn't answer my question. How do you know her? Why do you have this picture?" James sank into his desk chair, his expensive suit suddenly looking too big for him. He ran his hands through his graying hair, and when he looked up at Maya again, his eyes were wet with tears. "Elena had a daughter," he said softly, as if talking to himself. "She had a baby. She had you." "Of course she had me," Maya said, frustration mixing with her confusion. "I'm standing right here. Mr. Sterling, you're not making any sense. Please just tell me how you knew my mother." He stared at her for a long moment, and Maya saw something shift in his expression. It was like watching someone do complex math in their head, putting pieces together, arriving at an impossible answer. "How old are you?" he asked quietly. 19. I'll be 20 in March. Why does that matter? James Sterling closed his eyes, and a single tear rolled down his cheek. When he opened them again, he looked at Maya with an expression of such profound sadness and regret that it made her chest ache. "Elena was my first love," he said, his voice cracking. "We met in college. We were going to build a life together. She was everything to me. And then she got pregnant." Maya's world tilted on its axis. The wallet slipped from her fingers and hit the floor, but neither of them moved to pick it up. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what he was saying. 20 years ago, James continued, each word seeming to cost him something. "My family found out about the pregnancy. They told me she'd gotten rid of the baby. They said she took their money and disappeared, that she never wanted to see me again. I tried to find her, but she was gone. I thought she'd made her choice." He looked up at Maya, really seeing her now, seeing Elena's eyes, Elena's smile, Elena's stubborn chin. "I never knew," he whispered. "I never knew about you." Maya felt like the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. She grabbed the edge of the desk to steady herself, her mind trying to process what James Sterling had just said. This man, this wealthy CEO she'd been cleaning up after for months, was claiming to be her father. "No," she said, shaking her head. "That's not possible. My mother never mentioned you, not once. She would have told me if my father was someone like you. Someone like me." James looked up, his expression pained. Rich, powerful, successful. Maya's voice was rising now, years of struggling and scraping by suddenly bubbling to the surface. "My mother worked herself to death at 2 jobs. We lived in a tiny apartment with mold in the bathroom. I wore secondhand clothes and ate discounted groceries. If you were my father, where were you? Where was all this?" She gestured around the luxurious office. James flinched like she'd slapped him. "I didn't know. You have to believe me, I didn't know you existed." "How convenient," Maya shot back. "Your family made her disappear, so you just gave up? You just accepted that and moved on with your life?" "I was 21 years old." James stood up, his own emotions finally breaking through. "My parents controlled everything. My trust fund, my future, my entire life. They told me Elena had taken money to end the pregnancy and leave town. They showed me bank statements, withdrawal receipts. They made it look real. I tried to find her anyway, but every lead went nowhere. After a year, I thought maybe they were telling the truth. Maybe she really didn't want anything to do with me. So you married someone else, Maya said bitterly, thinking of the perfect family in those photo frames. You had other children. You built this empire. You did just fine without us. James's shoulders sagged. He suddenly looked much older than his 56 years. I did what I was told to do. I married Victoria because our families had arranged it since we were teenagers. I had children because that's what was expected. I built this company because it was my responsibility. But I never stopped wondering about Elena. I never stopped loving her. Then why keep her picture hidden in your wallet? Maya demanded. Why not go looking for her again once you had your own money and power? You had resources, you could have hired private investigators. I did, James said quietly. About 10 years ago, when I finally had enough control of my own life to act independently. The investigator found an Elena Rodriguez, but she'd changed her last name through marriage. The trail went cold after that. I didn't know she'd kept her maiden name. I didn't know she was here in this very city. His voice broke. I didn't know she was sick. I didn't know she died. Maya felt her anger wavering, but she couldn't let it go. Anger was easier than the grief threatening to overwhelm her. She never married. She kept her name. She raised me alone, and she never once complained about it. She never talked badly about you. She just never talked about you at all. Maybe that was easier for her, James said softly. Maybe it hurt too much. They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of 20 years of missed chances hanging between them. Maya looked at this stranger who claimed to be her father, and tried to see any resemblance. She had her mother's dark hair and eyes, her mother's smile. But looking closer now, she could see something familiar in the shape of James's nose, the set of his jaw. Features she'd always had but never questioned. I need proof, Maya said finally. I need more than just a story and an old photograph. Anyone could make up what you're saying. James nodded immediately. Of course. We can do a DNA test. I'll arrange it tomorrow. You can choose the lab, an independent one, whatever makes you comfortable. And if it's true, Maya asked, her voice smaller now. If you really are my father, then what? James looked at her with such hope and longing that it made her chest ache. Then I want to be part of your life. I want to make up for lost time. I want to help you, support you, give you everything you should have had growing up. I don't need your charity, Maya said quickly, that pride her mother had instilled in her rising up. I'm doing fine on my own. You're working as a janitor while going to college, James said gently. You're exhausted. I can see it in your eyes. The same exhaustion I used to see in your mother's eyes all those years ago. Let me help. Please. Let me do what I should have been doing all along. Maya wanted to say yes. Part of her, the tired part that was so sick of struggling, wanted to accept everything he was offering. But another part, the part that was her mother's daughter, refused to give in so easily. I need time to think, she said. This is too much. A few hours ago, I thought my father was just some guy my mother didn't want to talk about. Now you're telling me he's you, and everything I thought I knew about my life is wrong. Take all the time you need, James said. But please, let me at least give you my personal number. If you need anything at all, call me. Day or night. He pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. Maya took it reluctantly, tucking it into her uniform pocket without looking at it. I should go, she said. I still have 3 more floors to clean. Don't worry about that tonight, James said. I'll tell your supervisor you weren't feeling well. Go home, rest, process this. Maya almost argued but decided against it. She was exhausted emotionally and physically. She just nodded and turned to leave. Maya, James called out as she reached the door. She stopped but didn't turn around. Your mother, was she happy? Even without all the money and opportunities, was she happy? Maya thought about her mother's laugh, the way she'd sing while cooking dinner, how she'd always find spare change to buy Maya's favorite candy on Friday nights. She thought about the love that had filled their small apartment, how her mother had made even the hardest times feel manageable. Yes, Maya said softly. She was happy, because she had me and I had her, and that was enough. She heard James make a sound, something between a sob and a sigh of relief. Thank you for telling me that. Maya left without another word, pushing her cart back to the supply closet in a daze. She changed out of her uniform mechanically, her mind replaying the entire conversation. On the bus ride home, she stared out the window at the city lights. seeing nothing. When she finally got to her apartment, the tiny studio she'd struggled to afford after her mother died, she collapsed on her bed fully clothed. She pulled out the business card James had given her. On the back, in neat handwriting, he'd written his personal cell number and a short message. "Your mother was the best person I ever knew. I'm so sorry I failed both of you." Maya stared at those words for a long time. Then she opened the drawer of her nightstand and pulled out a small box. Inside were the few precious items from her mother she'd kept. A pair of earrings, a faded scarf, and a photograph, the only one they had where her mother was really smiling. It had been taken at Maya's high school graduation, just a year before the cancer diagnosis. She set the two photos side by side. The young girl laughing in the park, full of hope and possibility. The tired but proud woman celebrating her daughter's achievement. 20 years separated these two versions of Elena Rodriguez, and Maya realized she'd only ever known the second one, the one who'd been shaped by struggle and single motherhood and sacrifice. What would her mother think about all this? Would she want Maya to accept James's help? Or would she be angry that after all these years he'd suddenly shown up with his regrets and his money? Maya would never know the answer to that question. Her mother had taken those secrets to her grave, leaving Maya to figure out this impossible situation on her own. She picked up her phone and stared at James's number for a long moment. Then she typed out a message. "Okay, let's do the DNA test. But I'm paying for half of it, and if you really are my father, we need to talk about why your family did what they did to my mother. I need the whole truth, not just your version of it." She hit send before she could change her mind. 3 dots appeared almost immediately, showing he was typing a response. "I'll tell you everything. I promise. And Maya, thank you for giving me this chance." Maya set the phone down and looked at her mother's picture again. "I hope I'm doing the right thing, Mom," she whispered. "I really hope you'd understand." But the photo just stared back at her, frozen in that moment of pride and love, keeping its secrets forever. The DNA test results came back 3 days later, but Maya already knew what they would say. She'd seen it in James's eyes that night in his office, in the way certain expressions crossed his face that reminded her of her own reflection. Still, seeing the words on paper made it real in a way nothing else had. James Sterling was her father. She sat in the sterile waiting room of the testing facility, holding the envelope with shaking hands. James sat beside her, keeping a respectful distance. He'd been careful not to push too hard over the past few days, just sending brief text messages asking how she was doing, if she needed anything. "So now what?" Maya asked, not looking at him. "Now I'd like you to meet my family," James said carefully. "They need to know about you. They deserve to know." Maya's stomach twisted. "Your real family, you mean? The legitimate one?" "You're just as much my child as they are," James said firmly. "More, actually, since you're my firstborn. I've already told Victoria. She knows you're coming to the house this evening." "You told her?" Maya's head whipped around. "Without asking me first? I'm sorry, but I couldn't keep hiding this. It's not fair to anyone, especially not to you. You're not some secret to be ashamed of. You're my daughter." Maya wanted to argue, but part of her was touched by his words. Still, the thought of walking into that mansion and facing his perfect family made her feel sick. "What did she say?" "Your wife?" James hesitated. "She's processing it. This isn't easy for her either. Finding out your husband had a child with someone else before you married, it's a shock. But you weren't married when my mom got pregnant," Maya pointed out. "She can't exactly be mad about that." "No, but she can be concerned about what this means for our family now. For the company, for our children's inheritance, for our social standing. Victoria thinks about these things." Maya stood up abruptly. "So that's what I am? A threat to the inheritance? A scandal waiting to damage the family name?" "That's not what I meant," James said, standing too. "I'm just being honest about the situation. This is complicated for everyone involved. But Maya, I don't care what anyone thinks. You're my daughter and I want you in my life. That's not negotiable." Maya looked at him, searching his face for any sign of doubt or regret. She didn't find any. Whatever else James Sterling was, he seemed genuine about wanting to be her father. The question was whether she wanted him to be. "Fine," she said. "I'll come to dinner. But I'm not making any promises about what happens after that." That evening, Maya stood outside the Sterling mansion, feeling like she'd stepped into a different world. The house was massive, with perfectly manicured lawns and a fountain in the circular driveway. Her entire apartment building could probably fit in their garage. She'd worn her nicest outfit, a simple dress she'd bought on sale for job interviews, but she still felt completely out of place. The door opened before she could knock, and James stood there with a welcoming smile that didn't quite hide his nervousness. "I'm so glad you came," he said. "Come in, please." The inside of the house was even more intimidating than the outside. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, artwork that probably cost more than Maya would make in her entire lifetime. She followed James through hallways that seemed to go on forever, until they reached a formal dining room where 3 people sat waiting. Victoria Sterling was exactly what Maya had expected. Perfectly styled blonde hair, designer clothes, a pleasant smile that didn't reach her eyes. She stood up gracefully, extending her hand. "Maya, welcome to our home. James has told me so much about you." Maya shook her hand, noting the coolness of Victoria's grip. "Thank you for having me, Mrs. Sterling. Please, call me Victoria." Her tone suggested this was a courtesy, not an invitation to familiarity. The 2 people sitting at the table were closer to Maya's age. The young man had James's features, but softer, more refined. He didn't stand up or offer to shake her hand, just looked at her with barely concealed hostility. "This is Connor, he's 23, James said, his tone carrying a warning note his son clearly chose to ignore. "So you're the janitor," Connor said, his voice dripping with contempt. "The one who claims to be Dad's secret daughter." "Connor," Victoria said sharply, "we discussed this." "I don't claim to be anything," Maya replied, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. "The DNA test speaks for itself." "DNA tests can be faked," Connor muttered, but his mother's glare silenced him. The young woman stood up, and Maya was surprised to see genuine curiosity in her face rather than judgment. She was beautiful in that effortless way wealthy people often were, with long dark hair and kind eyes. "I'm Isabel," she said, offering her hand with a real smile. "I'm 21. And I'm sorry about my brother, he forgot his manners today." Maya felt some of her tension ease as she shook Isabel's hand. "It's nice to meet you." "Come sit," James said, gesturing to an empty chair across from his other children. "Dinner will be served shortly." The meal that followed was one of the most uncomfortable experiences of Maya's life. Victoria made polite conversation about nothing in particular, asking Maya about her studies, but in a way that felt like an interrogation. Connor barely spoke, just glared at his plate and occasionally at Maya. Only Isabel seemed genuinely interested in getting to know her. "So what are you studying?" Isabel asked. "Business administration," Maya said. "I'm hoping to get into marketing eventually." "That's great. Are you at State University?" "Community college right now. I'm planning to transfer once I save enough for tuition." Maya saw Connor smirk at this and her face burned with embarrassment, but Isabel just nodded thoughtfully. "That's smart. Community college first makes a lot of sense financially. I went straight to a private university and honestly, I'm not sure it was worth the difference in cost." "It was worth it because you made connections," Connor interjected. "The right kind of connections. Not something you get at community college." "Connor, that's enough," James said firmly. "Maya is working hard to build her future just like you did. Actually, she's working harder because she's doing it without any family support." "Yet," Victoria said quietly, and everyone's attention turned to her. "Without family support yet. That's what this dinner is about, isn't it? Determining how the family will adjust to this new situation?" The word situation hung in the air like a bad smell. Maya felt her temper rising. "I'm not a situation," she said. "I'm a person, and for the record, I didn't come here asking for anything. I was fine before I knew who my father was, and I'll be fine regardless of what happens now." "Of course you will," Victoria said smoothly. "But surely you can understand our position. We need to discuss practical matters. The company succession, trust funds, inheritance rights. These things affect everyone at this table. Mom, can we not do this right now?" Isabel said, looking embarrassed. "Maybe we should just try to get to know Maya first." "I think it's better to be clear about expectations from the beginning," Victoria replied. "Maya seems like an intelligent young woman. I'm sure she appreciates honesty." Maya looked at James, who seemed torn between defending her and keeping peace with his wife. She realized in that moment that this was what her life would be like if she accepted being part of this family. Always walking on eggshells, always being reminded that she was the outsider, the complication. "You're right, I do appreciate honesty," Maya said, standing up. "So let me be honest. I came here because James asked me to, not because I want anything from any of you." My mother raised me to work for what I have, and that's what I'll keep doing. I don't need trust funds or inheritance or any of this. She gestured around the opulent dining room. Maya, please don't leave, James said, standing too. We're just getting started. No, I think we're done, Maya said. Thank you for dinner, but I don't belong here. I can see that. And I'm pretty sure everyone else at this table can too. She started toward the door, but Isabel caught up with her in the hallway. Wait, Isabel said. Please don't judge all of us by Connor and my mother. They're just scared. Scared of what? That I'm going to steal their money? Scared of change, Isabel said. Our family looks perfect from the outside, but it's not. My parents' marriage is more of a business arrangement than a love story. Connor is terrified he's not good enough to run the company someday. And me? I've always felt like something was missing, like our family was incomplete somehow. Maya studied her half-sister's face, seeing sincerity there. What are you saying? I'm saying give us another chance. Give me a chance at least. I've always wanted a sister. I know this is weird and complicated, but maybe we could try to be friends? No pressure about the family stuff, just two people getting to know each other. Maya found herself wanting to say yes. Despite everything, despite Connor's hostility and Victoria's coldness, Isabel seemed genuine. Okay, Maya said slowly. We can try that. But just us, no family dinners for a while. Isabel grinned. Deal, can I have your number? As Maya left the mansion that night, she felt confused and exhausted, but also something else. Something that might have been hope. She'd come to that dinner expecting to hate James's family, expecting to confirm that she didn't belong in their world. Instead, she'd found a sister, and that was something worth holding on to, even if everything else was a mess. Over the next few weeks, Maya found herself in a strange new routine. She still went to classes, still worked her night shifts, but now she also had coffee dates with Isabel twice a week. Her half-sister was nothing like Maya had expected. Despite growing up with every privilege imaginable, Isabel was down to earth and genuinely curious about Maya's life. They met at a small cafe near campus, far from the places where Isabel's usual crowd hung out. Maya appreciated that Isabel was trying to make her comfortable, meeting on her turf instead of some fancy restaurant where Maya would feel out of place. So tell me about Mom, Isabel said one afternoon, stirring her latte. Our dad talks about her sometimes, but I want to hear it from you. What was she like? Maya smiled, the way she always did when she thought about her mother. She was strong. Like, incredibly strong. She never let me see her break down, even when things were really hard. She'd come home exhausted from working doubles, but she'd still help me with my homework and make sure I had everything I needed for school. She sounds amazing, Isabel said softly. She was. She had this saying whenever I complained about something being difficult. She'd tell me, "Nothing worth having comes easy, mija." That's what kept me going after she died. Isabel reached across the table and squeezed Maya's hand. In the past few weeks, they'd formed a real connection, and Maya was grateful for it. Having a sister felt right in a way she hadn't expected. Can I ask you something? Isabel said, her expression turning serious. Sure. Are you angry at my dad? For not being there? Maya considered the question carefully. I was at first, but the more I learn about what happened, the more I realize he was lied to. Your grandmother, she's the one who destroyed everything. Yeah, about that, Isabel said, leaning forward. I've been doing some digging. Going through old family papers in the attic. And Maya, I found something you need to see. Maya's heart started beating faster. What kind of something? Isabel pulled out her phone and scrolled through photos. Letters. Dozens of them. All from your mom to my dad, sent over a period of about 2 years after you were born. None of them were ever delivered to him. My grandmother kept them all. Maya felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. My mom tried to contact him. Multiple times, look. Isabel handed her the phone, and Maya scrolled through images of letters written in her mother's familiar handwriting. Her eyes filled with tears as she read her mother's words from 20 years ago. Dear James, I know your family doesn't approve of me, but you deserve to know that you have a daughter. Her name is Maya and she has your eyes. Please, I'm not asking for money or anything else. I just think you should know she exists. Another letter dated 3 months later. I don't know why you're not responding. Maybe you don't want anything to do with us, and if that's true, I'll respect it. But I have to believe that James I knew would want to meet his daughter. Please write back. And another from 6 months after that. This is my last letter. I can't keep doing this. Keep hoping you'll respond. Maya asks about her father sometimes, and I don't know what to tell her. I'm raising her to be strong and independent, and maybe it's better this way. But I want you to know that I loved you, and I wish things had been different. Maya's hands were shaking so hard she nearly dropped the phone. All this time, she'd believed her mother had chosen to keep James out of their lives. But her mother had tried. She'd tried so hard to give Maya a father, and she'd been ignored. There's more, Isabel said gently. I found bank statements showing that my grandmother paid your mom's landlord to evict her. That's why you guys moved across the city when you were 2. She was making it harder for anyone to find you. Why would she do that? Maya's voice was barely a whisper. Control. My grandmother was obsessed with the family image, with maintaining our social status. A baby with a woman from a poor family? That didn't fit her vision, so she made sure your mom disappeared. Maya felt anger burning through her grief. Does your dad know about this? Not yet. I wanted to tell you first. But Maya, he needs to see these letters. He needs to know that your mom never gave up on him, that she tried to include him in your life. When did your grandmother die? Maya asked, something dark and bitter rising in her chest. 2 years ago. Cancer, actually. Same as your mom. Isabel paused. She confessed some of it at the end. Told my dad that she'd interfered, but she never mentioned the letters. We found them hidden in a locked box in her bedroom, buried under other papers. Maya stood up abruptly. I need to show these to him. Now. I'll come with you, Isabel said, gathering her things. They drove to Sterling Industries in Isabel's car, and Maya was grateful for her sister's presence. She felt like she might fall apart at any moment, and Isabel's steady calm helped keep her grounded. James was in a meeting when they arrived, but Isabel told his assistant it was an emergency. 5 minutes later, they were sitting in his office, the same office where this whole story had started weeks ago. What's wrong? James asked, looking between his daughters with concern. Maya couldn't speak, so Isabel explained what she'd found. With each word, James's face grew paler. When Isabel showed him the photos of the letters on her phone, he sank into his chair like his legs couldn't hold him anymore. She tried to reach me, he whispered, scrolling through the images with shaking hands. All those years I thought she wanted nothing to do with me, but she was trying. And my mother stopped every single letter. There's more, Isabel said quietly, showing him the bank statements. Grandmother paid to have them evicted. She was actively working to keep Maya and her mom away from you. James's face crumpled, and Maya watched as this powerful man broke down in front of them. He buried his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking with sobs. I could have been there. I could have helped Elena. She worked herself to death, and I could have prevented it. Maya felt her own tears falling. She'd been so angry at him, blamed him for not trying hard enough. But he'd been a victim too, manipulated by his own mother, robbed of 20 years with his daughter. It wasn't your fault, Maya heard herself saying. You were lied to. We both were. James looked up at her, his face wet with tears. But I should have tried harder. I should have kept looking. I gave up, Maya. I let my mother convince me that Elena didn't want me, and I gave up. You were young and you believed your family, Maya said. I can't blame you for that. But I can blame your mother, and I do. What she did was cruel and selfish, and it destroyed so many lives. They sat in heavy silence for a moment. Then James spoke, his voice rough with emotion. Your mother deserved better than what my family put her through. She deserved to be honored and remembered, not erased like she never mattered. She did matter, Maya said firmly. She mattered to me, and she raised me to be someone she could be proud of. That's her legacy. I want to do something, James said, sitting up straighter. Something to honor Elena's memory. A scholarship fund, maybe. Or a foundation to help single mothers. Something that would have helped her back then. Maya felt something shift in her chest. For the first time since discovering James was her father, she saw him not as the man who wasn't there, but as someone who genuinely cared. Someone who wanted to make things right even though it was too late. She would have liked that, Maya said softly. Mom always believed in helping people who were struggling even when we had nothing ourselves. Before James could respond, there was a sharp knock on the door. Connor walked in without waiting for an answer, his face tight with anger. Is it true? He demanded, looking at his father. Did you really set up a meeting with the lawyers about changing your will? James stood up, his expression hardening. That's a private matter, Connor. Private? You're planning to give half of everything to her. Connor jabbed a finger at Maya. And you think that's private? This company has been in our family for 3 generations. I've been working here since I graduated, learning the business, preparing to take over someday. And now you want to hand it to some janitor who showed up out of nowhere? That's enough, James said, his voice cold. But Connor wasn't finished. No, it's not enough. You want to know the truth, Maya? You want to know why I can't stand looking at you? It's because you're going to destroy everything my grandparents built. Everything I've worked for. I don't want your company, Maya shot back, standing to face him. I never asked for any of this. Then sign something saying you'll never make a claim on it, Connor said. If you're so independent, if you're so proud of making your own way, then prove it. Sign away your rights to the sterling fortune, and we can all move on with our lives. Maya felt Isabel tense beside her, but before her sister could defend her, Maya made a decision. She looked Connor straight in the eye and said the words that had been building inside her since that first dinner at the mansion. You know what? Fine, I'll sign whatever you want. Because you're right about one thing. I don't need the sterling money. I never did. But let me make something clear to you, Connor. Your problem isn't me. Your problem is that you're so afraid of not measuring up that you can't see anything else. That fear, that's on you, not me. She turned to James. I meant what I said about the foundation for my mom. If you want to do that, I'll help however I can. But as for the rest of it, the inheritance, the company, all of that, I don't want it. I just wanted to know who my father was. Now I do. And that's enough. As Maya walked out of the office, Isabel caught up with her in the hallway. You don't have to do this, her sister said. You have every right to that inheritance. Maya smiled, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. I know, but my mom taught me something important. She taught me that what you earn yourself is worth more than what's handed to you. Connor can have his company and his money. I'll make my own way just like she did, and I'll do it without compromising who I am. For the first time since finding that photograph in James's wallet, Maya felt like she understood what her mother would have wanted. Not revenge, not money, not even recognition. Just the truth and the chance to move forward on her own terms. And that was exactly what she was going to do. 3 months had passed since Maya walked out of James's office, and her life had changed in ways she never expected. True to her word, she'd signed papers giving up any claim to the sterling inheritance. Connor had looked almost disappointed when she did it, like he'd been hoping for a fight. But Maya had meant what she said. She didn't need their money to prove her worth. What she hadn't expected was how much James would fight to stay in her life anyway. He called every week, sent thoughtful text messages, and showed up to her college events when she mentioned them casually. It was awkward at first, having a father after 19 years without one. But slowly, carefully, they were building something real. The Elena Rodriguez Foundation launched on what would have been her mother's 45th birthday. James had consulted Maya on every detail, making sure it truly honored her mother's memory. The foundation provided scholarships and support services for single parents pursuing education. Exactly the kind of help her mother could have used. Maya stood in the community center where the foundation held its launch event, looking at the large photograph of her mother displayed near the entrance. It was the picture from James's wallet, the young woman in the yellow dress full of hope and dreams. Beside it was another photo, one Maya had provided of her mother at her high school graduation, tired but proud. 2 versions of the same woman telling the whole story. She would have loved this, Isabel said, appearing at Maya's side. Her sister had become her closest friend over the past months, the one person who understood the complexity of everything Maya was feeling. I think so too, Maya said, though she probably would have been embarrassed by all the attention. Sounds like someone else I know, Isabel teased, nudging Maya's shoulder. The event was bigger than Maya had anticipated. Local news crews were there, along with dozens of community members and families who would benefit from the foundation. James gave a speech about Elena that made Maya cry, talking about her strength, her kindness, and the incredible daughter she'd raised alone. Elena Rodriguez was an extraordinary woman who never got the recognition she deserved in her lifetime, James said, his voice carrying across the room. She worked 2 jobs, raised a daughter by herself, and never once complained or asked for help that should have been freely given. This foundation exists because she mattered. Her life mattered, her struggles mattered, and her legacy matters. Maya watched from the side of the room, not wanting to be in the spotlight. But after James finished, he called her up to the microphone. She wanted to refuse, but Isabel gave her an encouraging push forward. Standing in front of all those people, Maya's mind went blank for a moment. Then she thought about what her mother would say if she were here. "My mom used to tell me that nothing worth having comes easy," Maya began, her voice shaky at first, but growing stronger. She lived that truth every single day. She didn't have opportunities handed to her. She didn't have family money or connections. What she had was determination and love, and somehow that was enough. She paused, looking at the photos of her mother. "I grew up thinking my story was about what I didn't have. No father, no money, no easy path. But my mom taught me that my story is really about what I do have. Her strength, her values, her belief that I could be anything I worked hard enough to become. That's worth more than any inheritance." The room erupted in applause, and Maya felt tears streaming down her face. As she stepped away from the microphone, James pulled her into a hug. "She would be so proud of you," he whispered. "I'm so proud of you." After the event, as people were mingling and eating refreshments, Maya noticed Connor standing awkwardly near the back of the room. He'd shown up, which surprised her. She hadn't seen him since the day she signed away her inheritance rights. He caught her eye and walked over, his hands shoved in his pockets. "That was a good speech," he said, not quite meeting her eyes. "Thanks," Maya said, unsure what else to say. "Look, I've been thinking about what you said. About me being afraid." Connor finally looked at her directly. "You were right. I've spent my whole life trying to prove I'm good enough to run the company, trying to live up to my grandfather's legacy. And when you showed up, I saw you as a threat to all of that." "Connor, let me finish," he said. "I talked to Dad about the letters Isabel found, about what grandmother did to your mom, and I realized something. She did the same thing to me in a different way. She made me believe that my worth was tied to money and status and the family name, that if I didn't live up to some impossible standard, I'd be nothing." Maya saw real emotion in Connor's face for the first time. Not anger or hostility, but vulnerability. "Your mom raised you to know your worth had nothing to do with any of that," Connor continued. "And watching you walk away from a fortune because you believed in yourself more than you believed in the money, that taught me something. I've been chasing the wrong things my whole life. So what are you going to do about it?" Maya asked. Connor smiled, a real smile that transformed his whole face. "I'm taking a year off from the company, going to travel, figure out who I am when I'm not trying to be the perfect Sterling heir. Dad wasn't happy about it at first, but Isabel convinced him it was a good idea." "Good for you," Maya said, and she meant it. "Everyone deserves the chance to figure out who they really are." "Yeah, well, I'm sorry I was such a jerk to you." "You didn't deserve that." Connor extended his hand. "Think we could start over? I'd like to get to know my sister if you're willing." Maya looked at his outstretched hand, then surprised him by pulling him into a hug instead. "I'd like that." As the evening wound down, Maya found herself standing outside with James and Isabel, watching the sun set over the city. Victoria had come to the event too, staying in the background but present. She'd approached Maya earlier and said something that shocked her. "You remind me of Elena," Victoria had said quietly. "Not just in how you look, but in your strength. I never met her, but I've seen photos, read the letters. She was remarkable. And so are you." It wasn't a warm relationship, and Maya doubted it ever would be. But it was something. An acknowledgement, a small bridge across a wide gap. "What are you thinking about?" James asked, pulling Maya from her thoughts. "Just how strange life is," Maya said. 3 months ago, I was just trying to get through each day. Now I have a father, a sister, a brother who's actually talking to me, and a foundation in my mom's name. It's overwhelming. Is it too much?" James asked, concern in his voice. "I know I pushed hard to be part of your life. If you need space—" "No," Maya said firmly. "It's not too much. It's just different." "Good different." She smiled at him. "Mom used to say that family isn't always about blood. It's about who shows up for you, who supports you, who loves you even when things are messy. You're showing up, James. That means something." Hearing her use his first name still made him emotional. She'd been calling him Mr. Sterling or avoiding names altogether for weeks. This felt like a turning point. "I'll keep showing up," James promised. "For as long as you'll let me." "I'm counting on it," Maya said. "Because I'm going to need someone to walk me across the stage when I graduate next year. And I was hoping you might be interested in the job." James's eyes filled with tears. "I would be honored. More honored than you could possibly know." Isabel threw her arms around both of them. "This is officially the best day ever. My family is finally complete." 2 weeks later, Maya stood in front of the small headstone that marked her mother's grave. She came here often, especially when she needed to think or when life felt too big to handle alone. She sat down in the grass, not caring that it would stain her jeans. "Hey, Mom," she said softly. "I wish you were here to see everything that's happened. The foundation is already helping 3 families, and we're getting more applications every day. People are going to get the help you never had, and it's all because of you." She traced her finger over her mother's name on the stone. "I met my father. I know you tried to tell him about me, and I know it hurt when he didn't respond. But Mom, he didn't know. His mother kept all your letters. He's been carrying around that picture of you for 20 years, never forgetting you." The wind rustled through the trees, and Maya imagined it was her mother's way of listening. "I have a sister now. Her name is Isabel, and you would love her. She's kind and funny, and she looks out for me the way you used to. And Connor, my brother, he's trying to figure out his life kind of like I am. We're all just doing our best." Maya pulled out a photo from her bag, one taken at the foundation launch. It showed her standing between James and Isabel, all 3 of them laughing at something someone had said. She propped it against the headstone. "I know you raised me to be independent, to not need anyone's help. But I think maybe you also taught me that it's okay to let people in when they prove they're worth it. James is trying, Mom, he really is. And I think you'd want me to give him that chance." She sat there for a long time, feeling the sun warm on her face, remembering her mother's laugh and her hugs and all the little sacrifices she'd made without ever making Maya feel like a burden. "I'm going to make you proud," Maya whispered. "I'm going to finish college, and I'm going to build a life that honors everything you taught me. But I'm also going to let myself have a family, the family you tried to give me all those years ago, because you deserve to be part of that family too. And the best way I can honor you is by living the life you wanted for me." As Maya walked back to her car, her phone buzzed with a text from James. "Dinner this week? My place or somewhere you choose." "Your call," she smiled and typed back. "Your place. But I'm bringing dessert. It's only fair." His response came immediately. "Perfect. Isabel will be thrilled. She's been asking when you're coming over again." Maya sat in her car for a moment, looking at the text, then back at her mother's grave in the distance. Her life had changed in ways she never could have predicted, all because of one accidental moment when a briefcase fell and a photograph was revealed. Sometimes the worst moments led to the best changes. Sometimes the family you thought you'd lost was waiting to be found, and sometimes even when someone was gone, their love remained strong enough to guide you home. Maya started the car and drove away, carrying her mother's memory in her heart, and moving forward into a future that finally felt full of possibility. She was Elena Rodriguez's daughter, and she was James Sterling's daughter too. Both truths could exist at once, honoring where she came from while embracing where she was going. And that, Maya thought, was exactly what her mother would have wanted.